Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our third session of our first day of 2025 Community Week. This session is presented by HathiTrust staff, so we're really excited to talk to you about building resilient at HathiTrust. I am here with Andrea Cody, our business process consultant lead, along with her team, Erin Russell, our senior project manager, and Priyanka Selvaraj, our business intelligence analyst. And so we are again in Zoom meeting today. So the Q&A is enabled and the chat is enabled for you to post questions and discussion at any time. We're going to save questions till the end. But then also when it comes to Q&A, if you want to unmute and ask questions live, that is fine to do that too. And so now I am going to turn it over to Andrea.
Okay, great. I'll just take a minute to get my screen share set up. All right. So Melissa, will you give me a thumbs up if you see my screen? Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Andrea Cody. My pronouns are she, her, and I work at HathiTrust as the business process lead. You chose to come to this session, so you know that HathiTrust has a new team focused on building operational capacity. I lead that team, and I'm joined on the team by Erin Russell, our senior project manager, and Priyanka Selvaraj, our senior business intelligence analyst. You'll hear from all three of us today about our roles and our work so far. More generally, from me, you'll also hear about how and why this team was created and our intended impact on HathiTrust and our larger community. Here's our plan for today. I'll share brief context. The bulk of our time will be spent talking about our work so far, and then we'll look ahead to what's next. With any time we have left, like Melissa said, we'll take questions you have. We're also interested to hear your perspective. We're interested in how what you'll hear from us today intersects with your own experiences. That could be with HathiTrust or in your own organization. Please feel free to share in the chat, and we'll download and read the chat after, or you can raise your hand at the end of the time to share your perspective. Going to start at the beginning with very brief background information about HathiTrust that will be familiar to many of you, and then we'll move into context for the rest of what you'll hear during this session. HathiTrust was founded in 2008 as a not-for-profit collaborative of academic and research libraries. It grew out of the Google Book scanning program. The original Google Book library partner libraries wanted a place to put the digitized files of their books that Google had scanned, so they created a repository for preservation and access at the University of Michigan, and this became HathiTrust. We're a collaborative library hosted at the University of Michigan still, and we're sustained by our members who pay annual fees. We preserve and provide access to nearly 19 million digitized items to the fullest extent allowable by US and international copyright laws. On the right side of the screen, I've listed some things that are key HathiTrust differentiators for libraries. Our members co-invest in a collaborative approach to digitization and stewardship. For us, preservation and access are tightly linked. We believe that you can't have one without the other. The size and scope of our collection are a core asset. The collection includes thousands of years of human knowledge from around the world in over 400 languages. And we do all of this for our members' common benefit and the public good. Since our founding in 2008, we've grown substantially, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years. Between 2012 and 2022, our membership more than doubled and expanded to include a large number of libraries outside of the United States. In about that same time frame, we tripled our staff from 6 FTE in 2014 to 19 FTE in 2022, and we have grown more since then. And it was in the midst of that membership and staff growth that we were actively reflecting on how our organizational and operational approaches hadn't quite evolved to support that growth. Our experience offering emergency services during the COVID-19 pandemic drove this home further. In March 2020, we rapidly created and launched the Emergency Temporary Access Service, or ETAS, to provide lawful continuity of collections access, and we ultimately supported over 200 institutions of higher education around the world. ETAS was a powerful demonstration of the value of our members' contributions to and investments in the shared collection, but it also highlighted important internal challenges for HathiTrust. In short, it showed us that while HathiTrust had long ago moved past our startup phase, our systems and staffing models were still operated in that mode in many ways. In early 2020, HathiTrust applied and was selected to be one in a cohort of 6 organizations to participate in a 3-year initiative called Building Financial Resilience in the Digital Humanities. The program was put on by the Nonprofit Finance Fund and funded through support from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. NFF worked with HathiTrust and 5 other organizations over the 3-year period to provide technical assistance to build organizational capacity with the goal of creating more adaptable organizations to carry on the important work of developing, preserving, and disseminating scholarly work in the humanities. Participating in this program was helpful for HathiTrust to determine what we would need to build operational capacity and become a more nimble and disciplined organization. In 2023, we applied for and received funding directly from the Mellon Foundation. We received a 5-year, $1 million grant to strengthen our business operations. More specifically, the grant is combined with our own funds to support hiring of the 3 roles you'll hear about today, focused on business process, project and work management, and business analysis, as well as support for related systems and infrastructure, and partial support for a 4th new hire to provide dedicated budget and finance support to HathiTrust. All of the roles introduced through the grant are permanent, and the grant is designed so that HathiTrust can gradually incorporate the new expenses into our budget throughout the length of the grant. In parallel to applying for and receiving the Mellon grant, HathiTrust hired its first associate director, Jennifer Vinipal. As part of Jennifer's role, she holds ultimate responsibility for meeting the objectives of the Mellon grant. She kicked off hiring in 2023. Jennifer and HathiTrust leadership made the decision to start off by hiring the role focused on business process as the lead on the team, recognizing that this would be more of a generalist role that would more naturally accommodate space to guide the application of the more specialized skill sets required of the other roles and integrate them into a holistic approach to business operations. And now on the screen, you see us as we are today. Jennifer hired me in November 2023. I hired Aaron Russell in August 2024. And most recently, I hired Priyanka Selvaraj in April 2025. I'll share a little bit of my background now, and my colleagues will do the same later. As you know, I've been with HathiTrust since November 2023 as the business process lead. This is my first job with the library, although I've been library adjacent at various times, such as when I got my master's in information management from the Information School at the University of Washington. That was a sister program to the MLIS program. For the bulk of my professional career, both before and after getting my master's, I've been in operation roles in direct service human services nonprofits. I came up professionally starting in data management and analysis roles to support program operations, including deep experience with the Salesforce platform, and progressed to have a more holistic focus on sustainable business operations. Since joining HathiTrust, I'm decently far along in my learning curve about HathiTrust services, history and services, and I'm making my way learning about the larger library ecosystem and our unique place in it. My focus in my role so far has been on business process, including planning and prioritization practices, with an orientation towards sustainable solutions that increase organizational clarity and alignment. HathiTrust Associate Director Jennifer Vinipal introduced a concept early on at my time at HathiTrust that really resonated with me as I was working to understand and shape my own role and team. And that term is organizational design, which includes the practices, tools, and structures that can help us work together effectively and collaboratively, allowing for continuous improvement and movement towards our vision. Up until now, I've been moving chronologically to give you the background on how and why our team was created, but now I want to shift gears to share about our work so far. And we'll present our work areas and products in a very structured way, but our actual work getting to know HathiTrust as new staff in new roles has been intentional, but also definitely more incremental and organic than the upcoming overview might imply. I'll share with you on the first 2 topics, which are building a shared foundation and planning and prioritization. My colleague Erin will talk about scoping and completing work, and my colleague Priyanka will talk about building a shared foundation with data before we wrap up. Just going to take a little water break here. Around the time when I was first hired, and so this is when the team was just forming, HathiTrust was just wrapping up a year-long in-depth process of exploration, discovery, and strategic visioning in partnership with Athenaeum 21. Our previous strategic directions were set forth from 2019 to 2023, and so those were winding down, and our new strategic vision was published in early 2024 and is meant as a guide for the next 3 to 5 years. There's a lot in there, so I recommend checking it out if you're interested. But a main takeaway is that it refocuses us on the collection. It renews our commitment to the stewardship and preservation of our collection to ensure that it's rich, broad, discoverable, and useful, and it acknowledges the collection as the foundation of all of HathiTrust's work. As an organization and as staff, our strategic vision gives us just that, a shared vision for where we're heading. But it's in large part our team's responsibility to build the practices, tools, and structures that can help us work together effectively and collaboratively and move toward that vision. But where were we going to get started? Conversations around that time when I first joined HathiTrust indicated that there was a need to build a shared foundation and get on the same page about what actually makes up HathiTrust. This topic came up at different levels. There were ongoing conversations around defining services and roles related to services to make clear who was responsible and who to bring questions to. There was also a desire to build a shared understanding of the full picture of the parts of HathiTrust and how they overlap and impact each other. I definitely craved that as a new staff member, but I think even longer tenured staff with deep knowledge of their area and prior deep knowledge of other areas in the full picture recognized that rapid change had made their knowledge outdated or incomplete. And I also observed the way that our lack of shared understanding and shared terminology could get very distracting and take us off track or get us stuck in certain conversations. Resolving this topic will be ongoing, but one first artifact we worked on throughout the second half of 2024 was a conceptual model. It's meant to be a simple but adequate reflection of HathiTrust in its current state to help us align around a common understanding now and serve as a foundation for future work. This is a slightly adjusted version of our conceptual model of HathiTrust. This is an internal document that went through 3 major revisions and 2 feedback rounds before being finalized, at least for now, in January. I won't go through it in detail, but I want to point out some key parts. The HathiTrust collection is at the center of the model. This aligns with the findings from our strategic visioning process. The model offers a broad definition of services as the offerings and functionality through which we build, preserve, and facilitate access to the collection. In this model, each text blurb you see reflects and describes a service. And there are 2 major ways our conceptual model is organized. First, does the service primarily contribute to preservation or access? And then, does the service enable or deliver preservation or access? In HathiTrust Orange, in the center of the model, you'll see the collection itself, and around it are services that enable and deliver preservation, like ingest in our shared print program. In gray, in the bottom half of the model, you'll see services that enable access, like metadata and copyright management and review, as well as our technical infrastructure. In gray, in the top half of the model, you'll see services that deliver access to the collection, like search and access through our applications, like HathiTrust and ETOS, as well as the support provided to members and users. This isn't a perfect model, but it reinforces our strategic vision and our preservation and access mission. It's also begun to provide a common language and common reference point for staff, and with that, it provides a foundation for future organizational design work. One of those next layers of organizational design work includes processes for planning and prioritization. I know that colleagues of mine could speak to this in much more detail, but there had been previous approaches in place for planning and prioritizing work at HathiTrust. But between the pandemic, staff turnover, and rapid growth, the previous practices had not been consistently upheld, and they no longer fit. When I joined HathiTrust, we were already in the process of implementing an interim approach to identifying and prioritizing project work to create our project portfolio. Throughout the summer of 2023, staff had been prompted to consider the backlog of projects they would want to have considered for prioritization. HathiTrust leadership assembled, reviewed, and organized a draft list of organizational projects. And then HathiTrust leadership, which I had just joined, had a retreat at the very end of 2023 where we applied several rounds of prioritization criteria and eventually prioritized about 10 projects to get started over the next 12 to 18 months. And this made up our project portfolio. This was an interim effort, and we're not planning to repeat the same process, but I wanted to mention it for two reasons. One is that it led to some great work. This includes prioritization of the development of our resource sharing service that my colleague Anne did a presentation about in late June. You might have joined it, but if not, you can check out the recording. And two, we learned a lot from the process, which is now informing our work since then. Some reflections are that we prioritized too many projects. We later fully removed 4 projects, and for some others, tightened up the scope to be smaller. Speaking of scope, our prioritized projects were hard to scope because about 6 months had passed since they were originally proposed by staff, and basic information about the project ideas had been organized and merged and reorganized, so the original context and meaning was lost or at least blurry for some projects. Then the quest for that context resulted in some projects with large scopes or scopes that grew as more work was done and tangential topics were uncovered. And then when we put all of these big and some small projects side by side, they individually could have meaningful outputs, but they also bumped up against each other or pointed us in divergent directions, or the work itself could be really meaningful and complete, but might not have a next place to land due to lack of organizational capacity or clarity. As our next iteration, we're currently working on an ongoing planning and prioritization framework that draws on lessons from our interim approach that I just described and also relies on our strategic vision, which I shared earlier, launched a little more than a year ago. The framework is meant to sit between our strategic vision and daily work, with more of an emphasis on providing context and common direction for large organizational projects that require more planning for shared resources, but it also helps to do the same for team-specific projects and operational work. The framework distills our strategic vision into 3 strategy areas and allows us to focus on each strategy area to determine what overall work is needed to make progress towards strategy, and then identify and sequence projects with clear deliverables to create a roadmap. Our framework builds on the idea that all team and project work ultimately rolls up to support 3 strategy areas, and the descriptions included below are draft scopes for each. The 3 strategy areas are, and you can see them on the slide as well, the HathiTrust collection, which is primarily concerned with the quality, quantity, and diversity of digital objects and the content they represent, as well as the services through which we build and preserve the collection. The HathiTrust Digital Library, which is primarily concerned with the services through which we facilitate access to the collection, and the HathiTrust Organization, which is primarily concerned with understanding and cultivating conditions for success of staff, the collection and the digital library, understanding and situating the collection and digital library within the larger ecosystem, and directing their success to support research, scholarship, and the common good. For each strategy area, we currently have in progress a strategy statement, which replaces these draft scopes, as well as themes of work necessary to make progress towards strategy. We'll be completing drafts and reviewing with staff and then getting their feedback this summer. In the near future, we'll incrementally work on roadmaps for each area, which includes prioritization and sequencing of work, but also notable is that the roadmaps will be most defined and set for near-term work, and less firm the further out we go, recognizing that things are always changing and we want to be intentional and oriented towards vision and strategy, but also flexible in the way we get there to respond to realities on the ground and around us. Next up, I'm going to pass off to my colleague, Erin, to talk about scoping and completing work. And that's going to really round out what I've shared about the framework, because one of the topics Erin will share on is structuring individual projects or initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrea. You can click to the next slide. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Russell. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Senior Project Manager here at HathiTrust. I joined HathiTrust in August 2024, so I'm just coming up on a year, and it's been exciting to collect my thoughts for this presentation and really see all that our team has accomplished and to think about where we're going next, both as a team and an organization. So a little about me. I have a background most recently, before joining HathiTrust, in humanities doctorate level research. I have a PhD in progress and spent the last several years before coming to HathiTrust kind of heads down in archives and libraries for research. Before that, I actually worked in product and project management for software development, both in consultancies and startups. So my project management background is heavily skewed towards an agile approach and agile methodologies, and that experience has informed much of what we're doing here at HathiTrust. The main focus of my role, you might think it's to manage projects, but because right now our team is really focused on developing resiliency, my role has been more about enabling project management across the organization. So first, really just learning about HathiTrust and using my knowledge to develop and recommend sustainable practices that can be deployed across the org. And second, collaborating with staff to not only help develop these recommendations, but to incorporate them into our organizational culture. So as I mentioned, I have a background in the agile approach to project management and in agile methodologies. The agile approach, sometimes called little a agile, is about delivering valuable pieces of work to stakeholders quickly and often. The approach emphasizes flexibility, adaptability, and collaboration. Agile methodologies, sometimes called Big A Agile, are frameworks for implementing an agile approach, which you can see a description of some of these on the right side of the slide. You may be familiar with some of these methodologies. So a generalized agile development methodology, Kanban, Scrum, and scaled agile framework. But you may also be familiar with some of the concepts and practices that come out of these methodologies. So with generalized agile development, which is a term I'm using as a kind of catch-all for practices that don't necessarily fit into other like clear buckets. You have things like user stories, acceptance criteria, the agile software development lifecycle. With Kanban, you may be familiar with Kanban boards, work in progress limits, continuous improvement. With Scrum, sprint meetings like planning, review, retrospective, stand-ups, backlogs, the concept of a product owner, and with SAFe, the concept of portfolio and product roadmaps. So our team has encouraged orienting HathiTrust towards a more agile approach and pulling from the various methodologies to develop our project management system. But one of the challenges about project management that we've seen is that projects do not happen in a vacuum. You can have a perfectly designed project with a great team and all the intentions to create something deeply meaningful for your stakeholders, but this project will always be contextualized within the larger organization ecosystem. And there's all kinds of work that is happening across an organization. So, for example, at HathiTrust, our developers not only manage strategic project work or develop strategic project work, but they're also managing operational work, service support work, maintenance, bug fixes, updates, upgrades, and more. Our marketing team manages our blog. They develop webinars. They help launch new functionality to members and users. They develop programming like this for members and users, and on and on. So HathiTrust teams are doing a variety of valuable work, and any kind of project that we take on is situated within all of the work that is happening. So we realize we not only need to think about how to scope and track individual projects or pieces of work, but that we need visibility into all the work that is happening so that we can make better decisions about what to work on when. How do we decide if we need to focus on responding to a user support request or focus on making progress on new functionality that we can deliver to users? How do we make sure that people know what to work on? and that they don't feel pulled in a million directions? How can we ensure that important work that we want to do is not being hidden? So we not only need a way to think about project management, but also a way to think about work management. Luckily, one of the agile methodologies that I mentioned above, Kanban, provides a really excellent framework for thinking about work management, in part because it has a very simple set of philosophies. Visualize all the work. So a first step in taking a work management approach is to visualize what you're talking about and see it all in one place. This is not a small task. It requires not only tracking project tasks, but also the ongoing operational tasks. And the main tool for visualizing work is a Kanban board, an example of which you can see on the slide here. Another philosophy of Kanban is setting work in progress limits. So you want to ensure you aren't tackling too much at once and that you can prioritize the most important work first. Focusing on flow, so making sure that the work you're doing actually gets done. You don't want work sitting in a doing or waiting state for significant chunks of time, and you don't want to be starting and stopping a lot of work. So if you make a decision to start something, you want to figure out how can we get this done, assuming it's been prioritized is important. And then continuous improvement, ensuring that you have ongoing conversations about your processes so that you can improve them. A wonderful thing about Kanban is that it's not specific to software development. These basic philosophies can be used by all sorts of teams, and we've started doing that at HathiTrust. So we're using Kanban as a foundation for approaching work management across all of the organization. Once you have a grasp on work management, you can turn your attention to optimizing project management practices in addition to other types of work like operational or administrative. And for project management, we're using Kanban in addition to other methodologies like generalized agile practices, Scrum, and SAFe. How can all of these methodologies work together? Well, for example, from Kanban, the philosophy to focus on flow directly relates to how you break down the work. You want work moving through the organization. One way you do this is by breaking larger projects down into actionable and deliverable tasks. But Kanban does not provide a concrete practice for breaking down work. But generalized agile does, with the concept of user stories. But in order to focus on flow and break down work, you have to collaborate with other people across the organization and regularly reconsider and refine your work. Neither Kanban nor Agile provide guidance on how to do this, but Scrum does, with its concept of regular meetings like reviews, retros, planning, and stand-ups. And finally, if you're focusing on flow at the team level, you want to also focus on flow at the organizational level, which means you need a way to see how all the projects and their various tasks and user stories that are taking place across an organization roll up to the strategy and the mission. And for this, you can rely on the portfolio and product roadmaps from the Scaled Agile framework. You can pull from each of these methodologies to develop out your project management processes. So what have we done so far around work and project management? Well, as Andrea mentioned, our process has been focused on learning and collaboration. And as I mentioned, my role is specifically focused on working with staff to integrate sustainable practices into our organizational culture. Indeed, many of the staff at HathiTrust have been using some of these practices for a while, and we realized that it would be valuable to think about how we could begin to build upon the tools and practices that some HathiTrust staff were already using, and to more thoughtfully deploy them across the organization while also refining them in the process. So after a period of time focused on learning, I launched into my role by partnering directly with teams to help them establish work and project management practices grounded in an agile approach and in agile methodologies. I initially began working with our development and marketing teams, expanded to our member relations team. I'm now also working with our collection group and our UX UI team. And the focus has been on using Kanban for work management, which you can see Kanban for work management, while also simultaneously using all the agile methodologies to develop out our project management process. It has been a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach and has allowed us to tackle challenges bit by bit. Next slide, please. So what's next? Well, I will continue to partner with teams to help them refine their work and project management processes, while we ultimately work towards developing a shared organizational culture around those practices. And I'm beginning to support with planning out the roadmap with initiatives focused on delivering something tangible and valuable to users and members. We want to get really good at delivering the right thing at the right time and make sure that we can do that quickly and repeat that process. So these roadmap initiatives ultimately tie up to the planning prioritization framework that Andrea described. And finally, because the process has been organic and bottom up, we tackle new issues as they arise. And a specific issue we have honed in for now is working to create a project lifecycle for HathiTrust initiatives that go on our roadmap. So you can see a draft of that process on the right side of the slide. You'll notice that the lifecycle begins with discovery, which is a process of information gathering, and ends with review, which is a process of measuring outcomes. Both of the discovery and review phases benefit from a robust analytics and business intelligence framework that can enable them. And my colleague Priyanka will talk more about what our team is doing to scale up our business intelligence capabilities next in the final section of our work so far, when she discusses how we are building a shared foundation with data.
Cool. Thanks, Erin. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Priyanka Selvaraj, Senior Business Intelligence Analyst here at HathiTrust. Today, I'd like to walk you through the role of business intelligence at HathiTrust and how business intelligence supports our mission and makes our work more effective, measurable, and impactful. Having worked in data analytics and business intelligence roles at companies like Google and Facebook, I've learned how impactful data-driven insights can be when aligned with meaningful goals and thoughtful interpretation. At HathiTrust, where we manage one of the world's most significant digital library collections, the role of business intelligence is not just technical, it's strategic. BI helps us understand what's in a collection, uncover patterns in how our collections are accessed, how our members engage, and how and where we can expand access to the collection and improve services we provide to our members. It ensures that every decision we make, whether it's operational or strategic, it's grounded in evidence. HathiTrust manages one of the world's largest and most valuable digital library collections with contributions from over 60 research institutions. As the collections grow, and the services evolve, so does the complexity of the data we generate, from content usage to member contributions to operational workflows and user behavior. Until now, we have had limited capacity to consistently analyze and interpret this data in a strategic way. That's why the first ever business intelligence role is both timely and necessary. This role brings focus, structure, and expertise to how we transform data into insights. It helps us move from reactive to proactive reporting and evidence-based decision-making. BI empowers teams to understand what's working, where we can improve, and how to better serve our members and users. It also strengthens our ability to measure impact, prioritize resources, and align our efforts with the HathiTrust mission of preservation, access, and collaboration. In short, the BI role is not just about generating data or it's not about generating reports. It's about unlocking its full potential to drive smarter strategy and long-term value for the organization. Some key reasons why BI is essential. Informed decisions. No more guessing. Our teams and leaders can rely on evidence, not assumptions. Transparency and accountability. Our data dashboards will help us communicate clearly with stakeholders, members, and users. Efficiency and impact. We uncover trends and bottlenecks that help us improve services. Alignment with vision. BI ensures that we are investing in the right areas and measuring what truly matters. My role will lead data analysis and reporting to help us understand what's in a collection, how a collection is being used, and where improvements can be made. Build interactive dashboards and visualization that support teams in tracking progress, evaluating programs, and communicating impact. Collaborate across departments to standardize data definitions and ensure consistencies in how we collect, interpret, and apply data. Identify trends, gaps, and opportunities to optimize internal operations and better serve members and users. Lay the groundwork for a data-informed culture that supports transparency, efficiency, and mission alignment. Our first focus area for business intelligence is collection analysis and assessment in partnership with collection strategists and team. This is a strategic initiative to analyze and better understand the depth and diversity of our digital collection and inform collection development. We are starting off with a baseline metrics for staff focused on the size of the collection and breakdown by type of material, depositing library, language, and published year. As the organization's first BI analyst, this project is not just about generating reports, it's about building the foundation for a data-informed culture. This is a crucial first step in aligning our data with our mission and using that insight to serve our members and users more effectively. It's a great example of how business intelligence supports strategic stewardship of our digital content making sure we are not just preserving knowledge, but also better understanding what's in a collection in order to eventually strategically enhance its discoverability and relevance. So here's a sample dashboard that provides a high-level overview of our current collection assessment, highlighting key insights such as total item counts, total unique titles, material types, contributing libraries, language distributions, and publication trends, helping us better understand the depth and diversity of our digital holdings. Next slide, please. Since this is the first time HathiTrust have had a dedicated BI role, the collection assessment project has also served as a foundational step in building our BI practice from the ground up. We are embracing challenges and learning in the process, such as understanding the data landscape. HathiTrust manages an immense volume of bibliographic and operational data. Navigating that scale and understanding where data lives, how it's been structured, and where it represents, it's taking time and collaboration. Inconsistent terminology across teams. Different departments often use the same terms differently. For example, title, volume, or collection might mean slightly different things depending on the context. We are working on aligning definitions as we do our work, which will be crucial to ensure accuracy and consistency in analysis. Tooling and access. Getting access to the right data tools, systems, and permissions require close coordination with IT, collections, and development teams. This project is helping us get better BI infrastructure in place. Data cleaning and preparation. As we visualize or draw insights, we will have to work through data inconsistencies, missing values, and legacy formats. Building reliable data sets and understanding constraints will be a necessary early investment. Despite all these initial hurdles, this project is laying the foundation for a more connected, insight-driven approach across HathiTrust. It's been a collaborative effort that's already been helping us have new conversations about and with data. Next slide, please. To wrap up, business intelligence is more than a back-end function. It's a more strategic partner to every team on HathiTrust. It helps us ask better questions, make smarter decisions, and stay focused on what truly matters. As I shared, we are getting started with a focus on collection analysis, but we'll eventually work on usage analysis, improving internal processes, dashboards, and visualization for internal external purposes, and connecting our data analysis to our decision making. Our mission is big, and BI ensures that the work we do every day is measurable, meaningful, aligned with the mission. Thank you, and if you ever wonder what your data might be trying to tell you, I'm always here to help you find out. Thanks, everyone. Over to Andrea.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Priyanka and Aaron, for sharing, and thank you all for being here. I'll share a little bit now on where we're heading before we wrap up and take any questions. In the near term, we're, of course, moving forward with the work and work products that we talked about today. A big one is the framework for planning and prioritization, which includes getting the foundational materials in place for our 3 strategy areas and building out roadmaps with projects that deliver value. This is where the business process work that I've been focused on comes together with Erin's focus on work and project management, and the initiative lifecycle she mentioned is an important puzzle piece. So we'll be working on refining that, sharing with staff, and continuing to use and refine it. You heard Priyanka talk about her work on collection assessment, and I don't think it came up explicitly, but collection assessment is one of the themes of work under the collection strategy area. So while Aaron and I are focused on structures and practices that help HathiTrust staff work together effectively, Priyanka is zoomed in, contributing to a specific initiative. In the future, she'll partner on other specific analyses for sure, but eventually we'll also start to apply metrics across our system where appropriate, like to attach metrics to strategy, or roadmap projects, and also to build visibility into metrics related to our services, including usage metrics. So we can build a shared understanding and feed that into our decision making. Pulling up a bit, what we're ultimately working on is building resilience over time, or that's what we're looking ahead towards. As an organization, we're building a sustainable practice for defining priorities and work, so that we can rely on that foundation to make sound decisions and allocate resources. We're building towards staff having visibility into priorities and work so they can understand how their individual and team work fits in and how their work connects up to the strategic vision. We're focused on shared structures and practices for staff. We're not interested in structure for the sake of it or to create rigidity. We're building structure so staff can easily see how to exercise agency, creativity, and expertise within that structure. We want people to understand how to traverse the organization, to partner together more easily and make progress together. And we're focused on flexibility and continuous improvement. This means understanding where we're heading, but recognizing we'll have to be flexible in how we get there. This means building structures and practices that have built-in feedback loops for continuous improvement and to give us the regular space to identify when we need to change course. And we believe that this internal focus will translate to community value. We want to sustainably enhance our business operations so that more of HathiTrust staff's knowledge and great work can more directly impact HathiTrust services and mission, and with that, our community. And now we'll shift to questions and discussion. We are happy to take questions, but we're also interested to learn if or how any of what you heard today intersects with your experience with HathiTrust or in your own organization. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I think that prompt is in the chat. So please feel free to raise your hand, or if there's anything in the Q&A, let us know, Melissa.
Yeah, I have one question from the chat. Earlier in your talk, you mentioned HathiTrust staff missing some shared terminology. Do you have any examples of shared terminology that you found missing?
Yeah, this example is just the one that's top of mind for me, but actually falls more into Priyanka's what she's been working on, is how do we talk about what's in our collection. We have almost 19 million items in our collection, and that translates into, I think from Priyanka's slide, about 9 million unique titles is how sometimes we're talking about that now, but what those terms, what is an item versus a title versus a unique title versus a volume is a foundational concept at HathiTrust. Is our collection is our core asset. And so resolving terminology conversations like that and deciding what we use internally, how it relates to what is used externally, and just making sure we're as clear as possible with one another, and then also externally with members in the larger community.
Can I jump in? I also remember questions like, what is a service? And when we say access, are we talking about a service? Is it a feature? Are some of the, like, is search a service? Is it a feature? So just kind of clarifying, yeah, terminology and all of that, I think, like at a basic level, yeah, was part of it.
I think many might not have this, terminology conflicts in their work. That's because this is the first time HathiTrust is having this role, like, my role or Andrea role or Erin's role. So that's because we are just laying the foundation for everything. So, when you start something from scratch, so that's where this all comes in. But when any organization that already has a BI or an analyst or a program manager in place, though they might not have this issue day by day.
Thanks, Priyanka. I'm just looking at the chat now, and Rice, I see your comment. We prioritize too many things that you felt that very deeply. I think the type of organizational challenges that HathiTrust experiences are, we might have some unique details based on our specifics, but they are not unique challenges. I think everyone struggles with feeling that you either can do more than you can do in an amount of time, or that you are required to based on different factors. So there's something amazing at HathiTrust has been the forethought to create, to do the planning, to create a team like this, and then to create the space to actually do this at an organizational level versus like at the edges, which has really been my experience in other organizations. And to have an appetite to experiment with what it looks like to prioritize fewer things, but learn how to do them more directly to deliver value, and over time being able to deliver more value through that. So it's been a really great place to explore these concepts and how we can apply them to an organization that's pretty ready for it.
I have a question from Jennifer Vinapal. You're introducing a lot of change in the organization. What are some things you or we or even our members should think about us as you enhance the nature of our work?
I'm parsing the question right now in my mind. Think about regarding to change management. Jennifer, if you're here and want to, or Melissa, can you
think about this is really about like the quantity and the rapidity of change, and we want to change, want to make change in an orderly way. We're all impatient for change, and yet it's, so how do we think about that as you plan your work, as we plan our work, or as and this is also kind of on behalf of our colleagues who are also probably undergoing a lot of change in their organizations. Like what are some key things we should think about so that we don't overwhelm ourselves and yet we move in the direction we want to be moving?
Yeah, I think I'll share some reflections, and then Erin or Priyanka, feel free to. I think it's been really amazing as, after I had maybe, I forget how many months, some amount of months as the only team member, and then to have Erin come in to be able to approach the organization from some different levels, and now Priyanka most recently. And I say that because a lot of the work that I'm focused on, it's at the organizational level. And so I want to slowly and carefully observe, build structures, get feedback, and take it step by step. And in that process, my philosophy is not to try to push a lot of changes to day-to-day experience of staff unnecessarily. Have a light touch, but get feedback, striking that balance. But it is at the organizational level, so it doesn't translate to a tremendous amount of change or impact on people's work at any moment. It's more over time. So to have Erin join and be working very closely with teams, and to be working and to be helping to reshape and structure day-to-day work to have that flow more easily, has been a great pairing in my experience. And now to have Priyanka coming in and in kind of a different way, plugging in to deliver value on a specific area that that's already pretty defined in terms of what we want to do, or it's ripe, it's ready, and to have her to be able to like apply her technical skill set and strategic skill set very directly immediately. It's like a nice it's feeling like a nice way to be doing the work. And so yeah, I'll stop there. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Jennifer, but
I have a question for Erin that actually builds really nicely on your previous comments, Andrea. Do you have recommendations for introducing a project management approach where it has not been historically the norm?
Yeah, I think that kind of connecting to what Andrea said, I do think that taking a bottom-up approach, like I mentioned, we were doing. So when I first got to and to also respond to Jennifer's question around change, like when I first got to HathiTrust, I think it's hard for me to see this as change. I sort of intellectually recognize it, but for me, I come from organizations who did have project management processes that were really like in place and like happening. And so I see some of these practices and I'm like, that's what we should do, or that's what should happen. And I think like backing up, that's kind of a top-down approach. And I think this partnering with teams or partnering even with individuals, like finding someone who also wants to change project management processes and beginning to, or a team who's willing to kind of like try it not your way, try a new way, is how I would approach that, right? So that it isn't top down. You're not saying we need to do this thing and we need to figure out all the ways to do it, but that it is sort of like a wave, right? And so finding people who want to do that with you and participate in that and collaborate is, I think, a way to start.
Great, thank you. We have time for another question. Do any of you want to talk to us about anything that you are excited to work on right now or to be working on? Anything in particular?
I could share. I am really excited. I was just telling her this morning when we met about this initiative life cycle that Erin just that came out of a collaboration that Erin has going right now with our collection team, and it's drawing on her previous experience. I'll speak for her now. And so it's somewhat not totally created from nothing, but it's so much coming out of the conversations that they are having as they're working to structure work and that supports the collection strategy. So it's really mutual in that space, but it really plugs in incredibly to a need. I think I see its use far beyond that space. I even have it's been so helpful to me as I'm thinking about in any given moment, like, what am I working on right now? Where is this in this? Am I doing discovery? Am I actually trying to deliver something right now? So I just think it's incredibly useful. I'm excited we're early on with it. And so we haven't really even like introduced it to staff in a formal way. But I'm excited as we start to do that.
I can share that I shared in the presentation, I've been here a year, and Andrea mentioned we've been doing things in kind of like an iterative, organic way, collaborative way. And we've been talking about as a team, like, how do we bring this all together? How can we sort of begin to present it or share it out or kind of standardize like really what our processes are going to be? And I think this presentation was actually a really wonderful opportunity for us to kind of put down in a more kind of linear way, like what we've been doing, what we're trying to do, the direction that we're going in. And we have a lot of these pieces in place. And so I'm actually really excited about us doing that and putting it in place and kind of like really starting to develop out more that organizational culture around our processes and data analysis and really see, I don't know, what's it, the rubber hit the road? Is that the expression? So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Oh, Priyanka, you are muted right now.
Thanks, Andrea. So yeah, I'm very excited, and also I'm combining my answer for Jennifer's question here. So I'm very excited to be in this place because I'm the first BI analyst, and I'm seeing the happy faces when people get to me with a question, and then I give them the answers, and like Example, I have this collection project at the moment I'm working on, and then one of a colleague, Heather, is like working with me. And then whenever I show her like a number, or I show her like, oh, this is what it is, and she's super excited about it. That really excites me as well. Like, I'm just going to make life easier for everybody in this place. And also I did a piece of work for Melissa, and then I did see how happy she was, and she'd know like how simple this was to get it here. So I think I'm very excited to see happy faces and then give them, make easier ways of them doing things just like before, because I think they have very traditional way of doing things at the moment. So as far as I jump in and then I try to give them a solution, it'll make them life easier. And I try to establish a very data informed culture to everybody's HathiTrust. So everybody can have Tableau in their desktop, trying to figure out numbers by themselves rather than reaching out to somebody asking for numbers, or you have like monthly reports that's coming to an email or anything. So that's all going to be stopped, and you can have data just in your desktop every morning, and it's been refreshing every 24 hours. So you see updated data every single day. So that really excites me here.
Thank you so much, everybody. I am not seeing any more questions. So I am going to stop the recording, and we can thank you all three of you for presenting and talking about your work. This has been really exciting for us as a team to have you here on board, and I'm glad you're able to share with our members about it. And that concludes day 1 of Community Week. Come back tomorrow and Wednesday for some more sessions, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.